What's up? Welcome back to the Just Keep It Real podcast. I'm your host, Makayla, and thank you guys for joining back in with me on another show. So, this is episode 4, and the title is going to be Fighting Temptations. I have my little brother, LeCoreyen, with me. He's going to be on the show with me today. We're going to talk about what it's like fighting temptation. So, LeCoreyen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I just went out with my mom and my little brother. So, been having a chill day.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. It means a lot to have such a younger person on the show to, shed their light on what it means to
Yeah.
fight temptation. So I want to give you time to, let the viewers know a little bit about you. You don't have to go into extreme detail, but just to kind of give a little background about you.
Um, well, I am a writer. I play the piano. I write lyrics. Uh, I'm a high school student, junior. I'm in ROTC, and I have a soft spot for people who are in need, whether it's physically, mentally, or just spiritually.
That's good. That's good. So, like I mentioned, guys, earlier, we're going to be talking about fighting temptation. Throughout the show, we just want to shed light of both of our experiences, what it means to fight temptation, and of course, get to the end of like how can we overcome it. And, starting it off first with you being like you said you're a high school student. So the first question I want to ask you is, what does temptation look like for you?
Um, Temptation would be the urge to do something that you know is against the will of God.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I can agree to that, but I also want to add, not even just, of course, God's will is the most important, but temptation can also be as going against your parents as well, or other people that's
Right.
been through it and have is trying to tell you, hey, I've done this. You don't want to go down that route. But so another question I wanted to ask is, how do you feel when you're facing temptation? How do you best deal with it?
I mainly try to get rid of it in a sense of focusing on what's, you know, in front of me, what's the, main goal point that I have set, I guess, in life or in that moment, and just try to focus on it.
That's good. So, what are some things that help you take your mind off temptation? What are some things that you use? Like you said, you try to get your mind off it. So, what are some things that you do to help get your mind off temptation?
Most of the time, I write lyrics. Most of the lyrics are just me getting those emotions out. Um, I write books, uh, and I play the piano. The other thing that I use that I've been using recently to kind of cope with it or whatever is work, and not like a job work, but just getting stuff done, getting things accomplished.
Okay. So, do you like have like a little vision thing that you do? Do you just like make a list? How do you? What? Of course, you said you
I
work.
I just jump into it. I just do it.
That's good. That's good. A lot of people, that I've came across don't really. I can say for myself, if we're being real, I mean, sometimes when I deal with temptation, I do try to get my mind off it, but sometimes it's not always easy to jump into something. But for you to be so young and say that, oh, I jump right into things. I try to keep my mind off of it. That's really good, and I don't. I wish I knew I was doing that when I was coming up because I didn't take that route when I was your age. I make it sound like I'm so old. but when I was like around your age, I didn't have that, that mindset to just get my mind off of it. If I was tempted with it, I wanted to do it. And I ended
Well,
up
see,
doing it.
that's why we have these convictions and these this motivation. Oh, excuse me. And that's why we have these convictions and this motivation to help those who are in need and help those who are in trouble, whether it's spiritually, mentally, or physically. Because I was just telling this to some people in RTC the other day. I said, they asked me the question, why do I feel I would be a good, basically, excuse me again, basically be a good battalion commander. And I had to explain to them, I said, see, y'all all look down on me because of the failures that I have and how huge my failures may be. But those failures allow me to connect with you on a different level, because I wish I had someone there to say this and that when I was going through this and that. Well, now that I've been through it, I can be there for others, and they don't have to go through the same exact thing I went through. And so that's why you have this this podcast, for example. That's why you put it together to help those in need. It's a conviction. You have motivation to help those, to make a difference.
Yeah, that's really good. And then I agree with that 100%, to connect with somebody, because if you never experienced it, how can you tell somebody else not to do it? But that's good that you have that mindset and that mentality to it's when you're faced with it, you don't jump into it. You find different ways to cope with it. That's really good. So that kind of ties into one of the other questions I was going to ask you. But the other one is, have you recently been tempted, and how did you deal with it?
Recently, I would say yes and no. Okay. Because a lot of my mistakes not only affect my relationship status or love life, but it also affects my status within rankings and trying to accomplish things within ROTC. And so recently, there was talk going around that I was up in the running for next year's BC, but everybody is pretty sure, or everybody's pretty much saying it's not going to be him because of this and that. And so, like I said, just doing work, getting things done, I've decided to, I guess, take it upon myself to just go and have a one-on-one conversation with our current BC, and our colonel, and basically just lay out the foundation and lay out the plans I have for the BC, and not only not for the BC, for the battalion, and not only and I explained to them that not only will I not enforce but enact these plans, I don't have to be BC to make them work. My goal is to build a better future in ROTC, so that we can build a better school, so that we can end up building a better generation. Because right now, if we're keeping it real, like you said, and like the podcast is called, we have a pretty messed up generation right now.
We do.
And we always stand here and we always, give these long speeches and get together and have these meetings and talk about how we need to change, but we never get together and actually enforce that change.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to my BC, and he was basically saying that, he was basically saying the same thing that adults say nowadays. It's not as easy as you make it seem, because such and such has happened. For him, he was saying that the cards that he had been dealt with were just bad. And so the thing that I feel that we have an issue with is that we want to give up so quickly and so easily. If something gets bad for us, why would we make it worse or keep it bad for the next person? Why don't we increase the chance of the next person? Why don't we increase the chance of the next person getting a better deck of cards, rather than just giving them the same cards we were dealt, or just, we were dealt bad cards, let's rip them up and give them to the next person.
Yeah. That is such a good point about it, and I agree with that. It's all about enforcing the change, and, the change starts with you. It can't just, not everybody's going to have the same mindset or have that same viewpoint the way you see it, especially in such a younger generation, like you said. But it starts with us. Like, somebody has to be the one to set the standard, and somebody has to be the one to say, I'm not going to accept this. You shouldn't accept it either. But that's good that you're willing to be that person to go and want to change the deck of cards and not give it to the next person. So another question is, if you fail temptation, if once you've been tempted and you fail, how do you handle it? What do you do to get back from making a mistake?
With me, I'm strict on myself, just due to, growing up with a single father, and then having other women, come into my life as my mother, and just how my dad was and stuff like that. I'm kind of hard on myself, because usually when I make a mistake, I think about, the people who's died in my, in my favor. And so I'm thinking just like, what would they think, or how would they feel about this and that? You have, especially as a young black man in America, you have people who died and shed tears and shed blood, and just so that I can do one small task. And we look at it and we say, oh, it's just a school education, or, oh, it's just, it's, I only drunk a little sip of wine. It's not bad, but we don't look at the bigger picture. And so for me, I kind of beat myself up about it, and me beating myself up about it kind of not motivates me, but it turns something in me that basically pushes me to do better.
Okay, that's good. I agree with you. I do that too. When I make a mistake, I beat myself up a lot about it, and I just think, like, especially with something recent, I was like, just thinking like, dang, like I messed up. But one thing I also learned how to do is don't be too hard on yourself. Of course we're human, we're not perfect, but we're striving for perfection. And we're going to make mistakes. But one thing I'm learning is to forgive myself more. Because, of course, when I make a mistake, I go to God for forgiveness. And if he forgives me, I should be able to forgive myself. And that's one thing I can say I struggle with, too, is just being able to give that, as God gives me grace and extends his grace and mercy to me. Why can't I give myself grace and forgive myself? Of course, not excusing the behavior, but just forgiving myself, so that where I'm not continually on, the enemy's already going to be on me, but that way I'm not helping him be on me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's the two, and that's actually this next question I was going to ask you, but so it's a 2-in-1 answer. But the other question I said, what do you think it's being young and being in high school? What do you feel it's important for this generation to know about facing temptation? And what are some things you think can help them overcome it if they're being faced?
That's a good question. We so, like I was saying, with the issues with the BC battalion and all that, and ROTC, and I mentioned something to them that will give my answer to this question, which is an issue that people have a lot, is that we go straight to, let's punish the person for what they've done. Most of the time, things need to be, people need to be counseled. Most of the time, some people need to be just sat down, need to be heard, need to be listened to, just need to talk to. Now, that doesn't mean your actions don't have consequences. But I feel we've slapped back on giving mercy. I feel we've just went straight to, oh, he's done this. This is the consequence. Here you go. Now, at the same time, the world is a cruel place. That's just how it's going to be. And it's probably always going to be like that. And I wouldn't say we should change that. But I do feel like we're ignoring parts of ourselves that we shouldn't be ignoring.
Yeah. That's good. Like, to see that, the world, like you said, the world is a cruel place. And then, of course, we're lacking in mercy. Like I mentioned earlier, just because we are being real. You know, the mercy, like I said, that God, grace and mercy that God gives us, why can't we give that for ourselves, and why can't we give that importantly to other people? And, you know, with such the generation as a whole, because even though you're in high school, but when I was like your age, like we're in the same generation, but we're in two different age brackets, because how it is now in high school is not how it was when I was in high school. Like, don't get me wrong, there are things that we did, but the way it is now is completely different. And, you know, we're at that time I made so many mistakes, and like I had that support, but you know, it's that I didn't want to accept the support. And there's a lot of students like I see in this generation that don't have that support. They don't have that person like talking to them and like explaining to them like these mistakes are costly. And then, you know, it's like once they make a mistake, like you just throw them away. Like they're not able to they can't get no more grace. Like, okay, you made a mistake, that's it. Like, oh, you failed temptation, that's it. Now you can't do nothing else. But that's not the case. The case is that they made a mistake, yes, but you need to explain to them this mistake, you can't make it. Because if you continue to make the mistake, it's going to become a pattern. And if you become a pattern, then it's going to become a cycle. And then once you're in a cycle, that's hard to break. But nobody's taking that time out to explain to them that and to give them that grace. It's like, okay, you made a mistake, now you got to get back up and strive to do better and actually do better.
And there's a quote that I wanted to quote, which was, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. And that's by Frank Outlaw. And it's something you said just now that reminded me of that quote. We tend to just ignore small things, but it's the small things that count. I watched a movie the other day with my oldest brother, and the cop on there was, you know, investigating something, and he said the details, the small details, any small details matter. Pay attention to them because those are where the mistakes are. Mm-hmm. Those are how the criminals get caught. And it's the same way in life. Those are where the big mistakes are. Small things can turn into a domino effect. If you slam a door, you can knock the entire house down and not even know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That quote is actually so powerful. Anybody that's listening, like, I hope you take that quote and, like, write it down, because you got to understand, like, this stuff is serious. Like, temptation is serious. And like you said, it could be the small things matter. Like you hear everybody say, the little things matter. And it's true. They do matter. Because something so small can come so big. And I've actually been in situations where I entertained things that I thought was small, but end up turning into something extremely big. And has played major parts in my life. So when you...
I'm sorry, I didn't quote the entire thing. Okay. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Mm. I had stopped at watch your actions, they become your habits. I forgot to add the watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Yeah. And again, that's by Frank Outlaw.
That's still such a good quote to have and to just think about, because that's true. And of course, you know, God has a plan for all of us. He created us all with a purpose. And then sometimes I think about Jeremiah 29:11 when he says, for he knows the thoughts and plans that he has for us. So the plan that he has for us has already been made out. We just have to be willing to follow it. And of course, you know, it's not going to be a straight road. It's going to be roads with ups and downs. But like temptation is put in place for us to make us stronger. So that when we're faced with something else, we know if God gave me the grace to overcome this, then I know I can overcome this that's coming up in front of me. But a last question I want to have is, when you like you mentioned, you be hard on yourself. But what is something you think people who don't know how to deal with it, what is a way for them to be able to help it better? What advice do you, that's what I'm looking, what advice can you give to young people around that's your age? And of course, anybody else that's listening that struggle with dealing with temptation and don't know how to deal with temptation.
I think my advice would be to figure out what you want in life. Once you figure out what you want in life, you must find out what you need to do to get to that goal. And then once you figure that out, you must create a conviction or create some form of motivation in order to get there. Because I always tell the kids at my school, I tell them, you can never reach your goal without the right motivation. If you don't have strong motivation, you're gonna wait. Your faith and your conviction will waver quickly.
That's good. I actually said something similar to that in my first episode, Know Your Worth. I said, when you take action, that's when motivation kicks in. And that is so true. Like, once you sit down, I also want to add to people that are listening younger, and of course, you know, that's in my age bracket, that are dealing with temptation. First of all, you're tempted for a reason, but also knowing what to do when you're tempted. Don't give in too easily, because since we're being real, like recently I was recently tempted and failed. And, you know, it wasn't an easy thing to get over, because you think that, oh, people think like like I said, we're supposed to be perfect. But as Christians, as believers, we're not perfect, but we're striving for perfection. That is true. But with my situation, you know, just being tempted alone, looking back at it, I feel that I could have voiced it more. I could have did something different. But with dealing with temptation, when you're tempted, don't take the easy way out. Because when you take the easy way out, the effects afterwards hurt more than it does when you were actually tempted with the situation. Because, go ahead.
The mistakes you make creates your character. So don't always look at your mistakes as a failure or something that is worth being ashamed of. I had to learn that the hard way, and the question you asked earlier, I would use that as my main answer. Don't look at your mistakes as a major failure. Don't look at it as the world is about to end, because once you do that, you just start to look at it differently, and you start to get a different sense and feeling behind it.
Yeah. Because that's what I had to change too. Because I was looking at it like, man, like, I can't believe this happened. But by the grace of God, I was able to see that it's a mistake and I've made it. But I also, because I went to God first to forgive me, and then now I'm able to forgive myself. But just when you're dealing with temptation, if you fail, get up. Don't just stay there, because staying there looking at the mistake, like he said, it's going to become your character. And then you're going to pattern everything by your mistake. It's a mistake, but it's meant to teach you something. Instead of you look at all your mistakes as a learning tool. What did you learn from this? And how can you move forward? How can this help you move forward in life? When you're dealing with temptation, don't be so easy to lean to it. Because even with you being strong and resisting temptation, you're able to get through it. It's not an easy thing, especially when it's something, or you're in a group or a surrounding that's constantly pushing at you. But if you're able to get through it by keeping your mind busy, like he said, don't think about it. Look at like, okay, they got something going on, but what is this going to do to me? Think about the pros and the cons, not even the pros, because giving attention, there's never a pro. But looking at the effect, the cost and the effect. What is it going to cost me to give in? And what's this going to affect it's going to have on me if I do give in? Look at that. And if you see that, and you're like, you know, that's something I didn't do when I recently went through my temptation thing. I didn't look at the cost and effect. It cost me some stuff. It did. And it also had some effects on me. But I look at that as now that I was able to, even though I failed, I was still able to get back up. And I'm grateful that I did get back up, because when you make a mistake, the mistake hangs on you heavy. And of course, the enemy brings so much to your mind about you making a mistake. It makes you seem like you're nothing, but that's not the case. You're something. You're somebody in Christ. And Christ doesn't see you. And one thing I think about, I love when he says, when Marvin says he sees the best in me, it doesn't matter what I did, for he only sees me for who I am. And to understand the love that he had for me at that time, to understand that even though in the midst of all of our mistakes, but just not just mine, but in the midst of all of our mistakes, he doesn't see us for what we've done or what we've become, who we were before we came to him. But he sees us for who he created us to be. And that's what helped me get through after failing my temptation. And that's the advice I would say I can have to add to yours. The advice I have is don't look at the mistake, like you said. And also, when you are tempted, look at the cost and effect, and make a decision, but make the right decision. Because yes, it's a cost to do it, and you can do whatever you want, but is the effects really worth it? Are the effects really going to be worth you doing it? And if the answer is no, and you get through it and you make it through, that's a victory for you. And then you can always help somebody else that are struggling with the same thing. But LeCoreyen, I was going to ask, do you have any questions about anything we talked about? Do you have any personal questions for me?
Not that I can think of, no.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything you want to say? This is getting ready to be the last little part of the show, but I want to just give you an opportunity to say whatever's on your heart, however you feel.
I guess since we're talking to the youth, the last thing I would say is that remember that you always have a choice.
That's good. The last thing I want to say, since we are talking to the youth, and you're like he said, you always do have a choice, but the choices you make, there are prices behind them. And sometimes the bad choices you make in life may not affect you right then and there, but it actually has a long-term effect in the future. So one thing I want to say is, when you make your choices wisely. Be aware of the people you have around you. I'm still learning this, so I'm being real. I'm not perfect by all means. Like I said, I just had I recently fell in temptation, but because of what have I experienced, I wouldn't want somebody else to experience this. So be very careful who you have around you. Also, think about the cost and the effect of every choice you make. Anytime you go out, and if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. No matter how hard the pressure gets, no matter how much people tell you how fun it is, don't. And it's going against what you stand for, and that it's not what you really want to do, don't go with it. And think about the cost and the effect. But alrighty, guys, that is the end of the show. I would like to thank LeCoreyen. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
No problem. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much for just shedding your light. And I feel this has been very, very, beneficial for me. Like I said, I recently went through it. So to just hear some of the stuff that you said about not looking at snakes, it's encouraged me and helped me. So I just want to say I appreciate and I thank you for being on the show. And hopefully anybody that's listening, you are able to grab some today. And whether it be young or middle age or after, we all struggle with temptation. We all deal with temptation. So that's just something we all got to, get through. But I feel like we overcome. That's another thing I kind of want to add. We all overcome by our testimony. So everything we go through, whether we make it through it or not, we are able to say it and we're able to help somebody else that's going through it. So we're all helping each other. But LeCoreyen, you can tell the audience where they can find you. You guys go support him on his Instagram, his writing his music, him reading his books. Where can the lovely audience find you?
I have 2 accounts. One is just life, my life. Mm. And the other one is all, the whole support and stuff like that, the writing and all that, which is Waits_.international, which is WAITES._INTERNATIONAL.
Alrighty. And of course, I will be posting all his social media in the comments down below when the episode's actually aired. But thank you so much, LeCoreyen, for being a part of the show, like I mentioned. So, you guys, this is episode 4. Episode 5 will be coming out. The holidays are coming around, so it'll probably come out, a little bit going into December. But we are 1 episode away from the season finale. And this has been an incredible journey so far, just getting to episode 4. But make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you share the podcast with everybody you come across to. Hashtag just keep it real. Hashtag it's the real one TV, and hashtag just be real. Thank you guys again for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate everything you do, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.